Hello. Thank you for watching the video until the end. My goal is to reach 1,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. If you're interested in this type of content, please subscribe. I would be grateful to you. Let's move on to the story. Andrei and Lena, a young couple, had recently moved into an old country house. Built in the late 19th century, it was steeped in the spirit of bygone eras. They dreamed of a cozy life away from the city hustle and bustle, and this house seemed perfect for their plans. Spacious rooms, high ceilings with stucco, creaky wooden floors, all this gave the house a special atmosphere. From the first days, Lena felt at home here, decorating the rooms with new curtains and arranging the furniture. Andrei spent his time in the basement, where he decided to set up a workshop. The first weeks were busy with settling in, and nothing forewarned them of any trouble. But soon, they began to notice strange things. It started with small things. At night, when the house was plunged into silence, Lena began to hear barely perceptible sounds, quiet rustles and creaks. At first, she attributed it to the old wooden floors and a rat they had once seen in the basement. But the sounds continued to intensify. Sometimes they seemed so real that Lena would jump out of bed and wake Andrei. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Andrei, not believing in mysticism and ghosts, just waved it off. "It's just an old house, Lena. The wood is drying out, that's all. Don't worry." But soon he began to notice strange phenomena as well. One evening, sitting in the living room with a book, he heard a quiet but distinct knock coming from somewhere deep within the house. He put the book down and listened. The knock repeated. It seemed as if someone was tapping on the wall. Andrei walked around the house, checking all the rooms, but found nothing suspicious. Returning to the living room, he felt a strange chill run down his spine. This feeling bothered him all evening. A few days later, Lena noticed that one of the pictures in the hallway was crooked. She straightened it, but the next day the picture was crooked again. A series of unexplained events began in the house. Objects moved on their own, lights flickered, and sometimes there was a faint smell of burning in the air. "We need to do something," Lena said one morning, after a particularly restless night. "I can't stand this anymore. Maybe we should call someone to deal with these anomalies." Andrei agreed, although he didn't believe in the supernatural. They invited a paranormal expert, a certain Victor, known in local circles. Victor arrived a few days later and immediately set to work. He examined the house, performed some strange rituals, and then sat down with Andrei and Lena in the kitchen. "There's something wrong with your house," he said, stroking his gray beard. "I feel a presence here. Perhaps some tragic events occurred here in the past." Lena turned pale. She didn't believe in ghosts, but Victor's words scared her. "What should we do?" she asked in a trembling voice. "I advise you to conduct another inspection," Victor continued. "There might be hidden rooms or passages in the house. This is an old building, and it could have secret places that no one knows about." Andrei and Lena decided to follow his advice. The next day, they invited a builder who conducted a detailed inspection of the house. After a few hours, he found a strange spot behind one of the walls in the basement. The wall looked normal, but when tapped, it sounded hollow. "There's something here," the builder said, pointing to the wall, possibly a walled-up room. Andrei and Lena decided to break through the wall. The work took several hours, but soon they came across an old wooden door. It was tightly locked, but after a few blows with a hammer, it gave way. Behind the door was a small room, filled with dampness and the smell of mold. In the dim light of their flashlights, they saw old furniture covered with a thick layer of dust and shelves filled with books and antique-looking items. "What is this place?" Lena whispered, looking around. "Looks like someone's hideout," Andrei replied. "But why was it bricked up?" It was at that moment that Andrei noticed strange footprints on the floor leading to the far wall. He followed them and stopped in front of an old dresser. With difficulty, he moved it aside and discovered another, narrower door. "There's something here," he said, calling Lena over. The door was not locked and opened inward. Behind it was a narrow staircase leading down. Cold, musty air rose and Lena felt her heart beat faster. She wanted to suggest to Andrei to stop, but his determination left her no choice. They descended the stairs, which seemed to go deeper and deeper. Finally, they found themselves in a small room, lit only by the faint light of their flashlights. The walls were covered with old newspapers, and the floor was littered with scraps of paper and broken objects. But the scariest part was ahead. In the corner of the room, covered by a tattered rag, something moved. Andre directed his flashlight at the spot and saw a person sitting, curled up. "My God, this is impossible," Andre whispered, stepping back. The person slowly raised his head. His eyes were full of horror and pain, and his skin was pale and emaciated. He looked at Andre and Lena, and his lips moved, trying to say something. "Help!" A hoarse voice pierced the silence of the room. Lena screamed, and Andre rushed to the exit. They ran out of the basement, slamming the door and trying to comprehend what they had just seen. "We need to help him," Lena said, trembling with fear and excitement. "But who is he, and how did he end up here?" Andre couldn't answer. All he knew was that their lives would never be the same again. Andre and Lena couldn't calm down after what they had discovered. That night, they couldn't sleep. Their thoughts revolved around the mysterious man in the basement. Who was he? How long had he been there? And most importantly, how did he get there? In the morning, they invited Victor back. He arrived quickly, sensing that he himself was intrigued by the discovery. Andre told him everything that had happened, and Victor pondered, stroking his gray beard. "This is incredible," he finally said. "We need to find out the history behind that door. But we must proceed cautiously. I feel there are forces at play here that we do not yet understand." Victor suggested conducting a ritual to establish contact with the spirits that might inhabit the house. He prepared everything necessary: candles, incense, and amulets. In the evening, when shadows lengthened and silence became oppressive, they gathered in the living room. "Sit in a circle and hold hands," Victor said. "We will ask the spirits to reveal the secret of this house." Lena and Andre, despite their skepticism, followed his instructions. Victor began to mutter strange words, and the air in the room seemed to grow thicker. The candles flickered, and then their flames grew unnaturally high and bright. "Spirits present in this house," Victor began loudly, "reveal your secrets to us. Who lives in the basement? How did he end up there?" Suddenly, the room was filled with a cold wind, despite the tightly closed windows and doors. The candles went out, and in the ensuing darkness, a whisper was heard, quiet and sinister. "He is." Here a voice echoed, as if from the depths of the earth. Lena squeezed Andre's hand tighter, trying to suppress her fear. Victor continued. "Who is he? How did he get there?" The whisper grew louder, becoming more distinct. "He is a prisoner. He was hidden." Suddenly, one of the candles flared up with a bright flame, illuminating the living room with an eerie light. Victor turned pale, his face expressing a mixture of horror and determination. "We need to know more," he said, breaking off the ritual. "I think there's something in the basement that can help us understand who this man is." Andre and Lena agreed. The next day, armed with flashlights and patience, they descended into the basement again. Victor went with them. Soon they were standing in front of the door, leading to the narrow staircase downward. "We must go together," Victor said. "Stay close to each other." They cautiously descended into the underground room. The man they had seen before was still there. He raised his head, his eyes shining with weakness and fear. "Who are you?" Victor asked, approaching him. "How did you end up here?" The man struggled to part his lips. "My name is Alexei. I was locked here many years ago. My family." His voice broke off, and he trembled from weakness. Lena knelt beside him, trying to give him water from a flask she had brought. Alexei greedily drank a few sips and continued. "My family. They thought I had died, but I was locked here. Their servant betrayed me, bricked me up." Andre and Lena exchanged glances. The story was becoming darker and darker. "We need to get him out of here," Andrei said. "He needs help." They lifted Alexei to his feet and slowly led him up the stairs. When they emerged into the light, Alexei closed his eyes, shielding them from the bright sunlight. Lena helped him sit on a chair, and they began to question him further. "Why were you bricked up?" Victor asked. "What happened?" Alexei closed his eyes, remembering. "I was the heir to this house. My father was a wealthy man. But his servant, Vasily, wanted everything for himself. He deceived my family, making them believe I had died of illness. Bricked me up here, so no one would find me." "But how did you survive?" Andrei asked. "So much time has passed." "I don't know," Alexei replied. "I ate whatever I could find. Listened to sounds from above. They gave me hope that someone would come for me." Lena, trembling with horror and sympathy, placed her hand on Alexei's shoulder. "We will help you. We'll call doctors and you'll be safe." Victor, however, looked worried. "This isn't all," he said. "I feel there's something else. Too much dark energy in this house. We need to find out what happened to Vasily and why the spirits continue to haunt this place." Victor decided to conduct another ritual, but this time in the basement, where more clues had been found. They gathered there again, with Alexei sitting nearby, gradually recovering his strength. When Victor began the ritual, the room filled with a sinister silence. Suddenly, a soft laugh was heard from the corner where the old furniture stood. Then the candles flared up and went out, leaving them in complete darkness. "Vasily is here," a whisper echoed. "His spirit cannot leave this place." Alexei turned pale upon hearing the traitor's name. Victor continued. "We must exorcise him. We must free the house from this curse." Victor began reciting incantations, directing his efforts at banishing Vasily's spirit. The temperature in the room dropped sharply, and strange shadows appeared in the air, moving around them. Lena felt fear grip her heart, but she held on, knowing it was all for the sake of saving their home and Alexei. Suddenly, the room filled with a deafening noise. Screams, cries, and malicious laughter could be heard. Victor continued his incantations, his voice growing louder and more confident. Suddenly, the shadows disappeared and silence ensued. "It's over," Victor said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Vasily's spirit is banished. The house is now free." Andrei and Lena sighed with relief. Alexei, despite his weakness, looked grateful. But something told them this was not the end. The shadows of the past might have been banished, but the wounds inflicted by this house would take a long time to heal. "We did it," Andrei said quietly, hugging Lena. "Everything will be fine now." They didn't know what the future held, but they were sure they could overcome any difficulties together. After Vasily's spirit was banished and Alexei was freed, the house once again filled with light and life. Lena and Andrei hoped the nightmare they had experienced was behind them. Alexei gradually recovered, his health improving thanks to Lena and Andrei's care. Meanwhile, Victor continued his research, studying old records and archives to uncover all the details about the house's past. He found several old diaries and letters that shed light on Alexei's family history. It turned out that Vasily was a servant who envied the family's wealth and power and decided to betray them for his own selfish gains. Alexei often shared stories about his life before his imprisonment, about how he loved the house and dreamed of restoring it to its former glory. Lena and Andrei listened to his stories with interest and sympathy, understanding how hard it had been for him. Gradually, they began to see Alexei as part of their family. Months passed, and life began to improve. Alexei, having regained his strength, decided to stay with them and help restore the house. Lena and Andrei gladly accepted his help, and together they began renovations to return the house to its former beauty. However, one night Lena heard strange sounds again. They were different from before. Now it was a quiet whisper, as if someone was trying to speak to her. She woke up and saw that Andrei was also awake. "Did you hear that?" she asked, feeling fear rise once more. Andrei nodded, his face tense. "It seems this isn't quite over," he said. "We need to talk to Victor again." The next day, Victor returned. He listened to their story attentively and pondered. I thought I had banished Vasily's spirit, he said. But perhaps some traces of his presence remain. We need to conduct another examination. They went down to the basement again, where it all began. Victor carefully inspected the room and discovered strange symbols on one of the walls, which he hadn't noticed before. They were etched into the stone and glowed with a faint, ominous light. These are traces of ancient magic, Victor said. Vasily used them to bind his soul to this place. We need to destroy them to completely free the house. They began erasing the symbols, but suddenly the room was filled with sinister laughter. Shadows appeared around them again, and the air grew thick and heavy. Lena felt fear grip her heart, but she knew they had to finish what they had started. Victor continued his incantations, and gradually the shadows began to retreat. Suddenly the room filled with bright light, and the symbols disappeared. The laughter stopped and silence ensued. We did it, Victor said, breathing heavily. Now Vasily's spirit is completely banished. Lena and Andrei felt a sense of relief. They knew their house was truly free from the curse now. Alexei, standing in the corner of the room, looked peaceful. "Thank you," he said quietly, tears in his eyes. "Now I can live without fear of the past." Months passed, and the house indeed changed. It filled with light, warmth, and happiness. Lena and Andrei felt they had finally found their place, and Alexei became more than a friend, he became a true member of their family. One day, while walking in the garden, Lena noticed something shiny among the bushes. She approached and saw an old locket. It was covered in dirt and dust, but inside was an old photograph, a young woman with kind eyes. Lena realized this was likely a photograph of Alexei's mother. She brought the locket into the house and showed it to Alexei. He took it with trembling hands and held it tightly. "This is my mother," he said, tears welling up in his eyes. "I thought I had lost it forever." "Now you have everything you need to start a new life," Lena said, hugging him. "And we will always be here for you." Life in the house continued. Alexei found a job in the city, but always returned to the house that had become his true home. Lena and Andrei enjoyed their quiet, measured life, knowing they had gone through trials and emerged victorious. The house, once full of secrets and horror, had become a place of joy and love. Lena and Andrei knew many happy days lay ahead, and nothing could disturb their peace. The shadows of the past had finally been dispelled, giving way to a bright future.